Welcome everyone. This will be my Silo Season 2 Episode 2 video. So we will break it all down. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos and watch out post spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. Let's get into the video. Silo Season 2, Episode 2 opens with the revelation that Bernard has access to the wiser footage of Juliet Nichols and that he has seen the thousands of skeletons lying in front of Silo 17 and is shocked to his core. He then opens the order, which is the rulebook for operating the silo, and reads through the chapter that says that if someone refuses to clean the cameras, then the authorities should prepare for a war. The alarms go off in the silo, thereby prompting Bernard to leave his war room and deal with the people who are being told to return to their homes by an automated message that has been triggered by Sims to prevent any kind of rebellious activity after witnessing how Juliet had refused to clean the optical senses. The sound of siren wakes up an inebriated Meadows. For your information, Meadows is technically the head of Judicial. I say technically, because Judicial answers to Bernard, and Meadows' presence is merely ceremonial and to maintain the image that Bernard isn't a fascist. Meadows spent most of Season 1 trying to appoint Paul Billings as the new sheriff and expressing her disdain for the descending activities of Juliet, Mayor Chance, and Deputy Sam Marnus. After the deaths of those two characters, Meadows became a total recluse, and that's when Juliet found out that Meadows didn't have any real power and that Bernard and Sims were calling the shot. Coming back to the events unfolding right now, Bernard tells Sim to announce a curfew and an emergency meeting with the people of the silo to address the ongoing situation. He bestows the powers of a sheriff on Sims and tells him to take his office to apprehend Juliet's father Pete in case he knows anything about Juliet's stunt. In addition to that, Bernard asks Sim to detain residents of the Deep Down, Walker and her ex-wife Carla, because they are responsible for giving Juliet the good heat tape that allowed her to go over the hill. Speaking about the Deep Down, it is in the utter chaos, and people are rebel, rousing the cafeteria. Hank tries to calm them down, while Knox says that the people's voice should be heard. Shirley points out the hypocrisy behind Knox's sudden burst of revolutionary fervor, because he is the one who reported Juliet's location to Judicial when she was on the run in the first season. Knox tries to justify his actions by saying that he did what he did to protect the Deep Down. He even reprimands Shirley for being too rebellious, but Shirley isn't in the mood to listen to him anymore. All this commotion is literally doused by Walker, who simply tells everyone to go back to work. However, work isn't the same as before because of the changes that Bernard is making to it. That's why Paul is shocked to learn that he has to answer to Sims of all people. Meanwhile, Sims is trying to put forward a hunky-dory image instead of addressing how monumental Juliet's action is. Since Sims doesn't quell Paul's queries about this new normal, the chief deputy asks him to at least put his last interaction with Juliet on the record. Sims clumsily puts together a story about Bernard trying to execute a non-respective arrest because Juliet had a red level relic and then her making a run for it, after saying that she wanted to go out. After that, according to Sims, Juliet was apprehended and sent out. Paul correctly points out that it doesn't make sense that Juliet would try to escape the clutches of Judicial after saying that she wanted to go out. Sims, caught in his own lies, says some whack stuff about Juliet changing her mind after saying that she wants to exit the silo. But that's not enough to convince Paul that he's lying to him. By the way, Paul is under the impression after aforementioned red level relic was destroyed by Bernard. The truth is that he shattered the external casing of the hard drive but kept the disk that was in it. Shirley tries to make sense of the situation. The silo is in by conversing with Walker. They speculate about whether or not Juliet is alive and if the heat tape was the deciding factor in her survival, which it certainly was. Their conversation is interrupted by Hank, who arrests Walker, takes her to the sheriff department for questioning, and puts her in a cell with Carla. Meanwhile, Meadows finally decides to lay off her medicine after learning that Juliet is not only refused to clean the cameras, but she also went over the hill, which is something that hasn't happened in her lifetime, I guess. She decided to see the world as it is instead of clouding her judgment with whatever mind numbing liquid that she is drinking. I think it's some raw form of alcohol, like moonshine. Bernard arrives at Meadows' doorstep in the hopes of utilizing her inebriated state to convince her to stand beside him while he addresses all the rumors and apprehensions that are circulating through the silo. So he's kind of shocked to learn that she is in her sense. Hence, instead of treating her like a puppet, Bernard answers Meadows' questions about the role of the heat tape, the rebellion that he is so afraid of, and the image of the situation beyond the hill around Silo 18. Then he asks her to help him figure out what she should do to avoid an all-out war, because the order doesn't have any directive for what the authority should do if a cleaner goes beyond the hill. In return, Bernard promises to give Meadows whatever she wants. Using the Wizard of Oz as an example of Meadows tells Bernard that she will help him if he gives her everything she needs to survive the outdoors of the silo. While Bernard decides his next steps, the initial embers of a war begin to form in the dark alleys of the silo, where Shirley learns about Walker and Carla's arrest. Shirley theorizes that Judicial wants to know about the heat tape that was used on Juliet's suit because that's what ensured her survival. Shirley even thinks that Judicial always knew that the heat tape that they were usually using wasn't built to last on the outside, and that's why they were so angry when Juliet stole, thereby exposing the difference in the quality of the heat tape used by IT and the used by mechanical. Clara also feels that this is the reason why she and Walker have been apprehended, and she wants to take the fall for replacing IT's heat tape with mechanicals. Walker thinks they can avoid punishment by simply denying their involvement in this whole debacle, but Clara sees that once Judicial has set their sight on someone, they won't stop until they admit to the charges being imposed upon them. Walker says that if it comes to it, then she will share the punishment with Clara. This whole conversation is recorded by a hidden camera in the vents, which means that Clara and Walker's fates have been sealed. Bernard takes the stage and puts his own spin on the events that have happened so far by smartly planting fake critics, skeptics, hecklers, and dissenters in the crowd. He establishes the notion that Juliet is dead and that she went out there not because of her rebellious nature, but because she wanted to sacrifice herself to see if the new heat tap developed by the silos technicians actually worked or not. Bernard thanks Juliet for her contribution to the research and development of suits that could help their wearers survive the toxic air outside, thereby winning over the residents of the silo because he honors Juliet while also showing that IT and Judicial have the people's best interest in mind. As promised earlier, Meadows back up Bernard's nonsense and the people cheer for him. Shirley tries to burst this bubble that's been created by IT by telling the folks the truth about the heat tape and how this next generation heat tape that Bernard is talking about is just a heat tape that was being used by mechanical. While IT kept sending out people with a bad tape on their suit, Shirley says that the only reason Juliet survived the trip was because the tapes were changed at the last moment. A writer tries to suppress Shirley's voice, but Knox stands beside her. Knox's attempt to win back Shirley's trust doesn't exactly work though, because we know that he's a spineless man who is secretly telling his workers to not make weapons that can be used in a war against IT and Judicial. Shirley also learns that Knox had asked Cooper to follow her so that he could report her to Judicial in case of she tries to do anything drastic. However, Cooper refused to report the truth about the meeting that Shirley and her friends partake in because he was Juliet's shadow, and he's willing to support anyone who supports Juliet. Walker, after being released from her cell along with Clara, interrupts one of these meetings and deflates the rebel spirit a bit by saying that whatever they are planning to do will end up being dead and the punishment will be borne by the entirety of the deep down. She warns Shirley of the consequence of her actions, but as soon as she senses the level of determination that Shirley and her partner have, Walker reveals that she is in support of the truth even if it comes via full-fledged revolutionary war. By the way, Shirley's act of protest seemingly doesn't actually make a difference because, as reported by Sims, the people have gobbled up Bernard's propaganda. But the jail, Juliet lives, a graffiti popping up, the silo says otherwise. Sims talked to Camille about Bernard and Meadows' relationship and how Meadows used to be Bernard's shadow and he continues to consult her. This reveals that the fact that even Sims doesn't know everything about how Bernard's mind works. Speaking about Meadows, she uploads Bernard's transformation from an IT official to a full-fledged politician. That said, she tells Bernard that his plans of using brute force to suppress a revolution, if it springs up, aren't going to work and will backfire. She advised him to give the people something to believe in. Bernard formally asked Meadows to be his shadow because she is the only one person he will listen to, and he needs Meadows' diplomatic acumen to weather this crisis. At the end of Silo Season 2, Episode 2, Meadows accepts a job offer, but she asks him to give her some of that heat tape that had helped Juliet to survive the great outdoors. Because once she has helped him avoid the looming crisis, she is going to walk out. Now, why does she want to do that? Well, based on the Wizard of Oz analogy the Meadows uses earlier, she feels like a fraud for ignoring her duties for several decades. She knows how many lives she has ruined, and she has a rough idea of the number of lives she is about to ruin by siding with Bernard. That's why, at the end of this whole ordeal, she wants to wear the suit to face the toxic air outside instead of being confronted by her neighbors in the silo. I don't think Bernard or anyone for that matter can deny a resident's wish to go outside. But given how conniving Bernard is, he's going to milk the hell out of Meadows and her skills before letting her go. Even then, there's a question of whether or not he's going to give her the good death because he wouldn't like the people of the silo to see yet another person go over the hill. If you find any reference during the episode that I didn't talk about in this video, please write them down in the comments. Thanks.